What's up, y'all? It's your boy Vinnie-Dangerous back again with another installment of 14 Live. Finally live again after a few pre-recorded episodes. Just had a great show at the poorhouse, and one of the individuals responsible for that, and that was a big part of what made that night so special. Somebody that I just met, but like from our first couple conversations, I could already tell like he's a very insightful guy, very passionate guy. One half of Sweet and Low, the homie Shane, man, how you feeling?
Hey, I'm doing good. I had a blast the other night. Made the rest of my weekend uh, really chill. I'm looking forward to what's in the future. Just linking up with everybody the other night, and just always thinking of next shows, new music to produce, and yeah, meeting nice people.
Yeah, man. I first of all, I wanted to say like I really enjoyed the like the new music that you and Eddie performed at the show. Like I know you guys have a new EP coming out soon. It's on the 9th, March 9th.
Yeah, March 9th, we're doing the Sweet and Low tape. Um, I think what we were talking about is maybe doing it in volumes because we actually are doing five on this one,
Okay.
and we have so many more that just we didn't include on this one either because of like aesthetic reasons or it just didn't make it off the chopping block. But yeah, I think we're gonna do a couple volumes because everything was produced by me, and Eddie really is good at taking the ideas that I'd been sitting on for years and months and taking them and giving them a new life and structure them so they're complete songs instead of like a little 8 bar loop that I had on Ableton.
Oh, dope. Yeah, man. So, cause when I was talking to Eddie on our episode, cause he said that you helped him kind of get out of his comfort zone. Cause like being a producer myself, and then like Eddie usually producing his stuff. Like we talked about how we kind of get we have a certain formula that we kind of follow. It's kind of even if we're trying to experiment, there's still a certain like structure that you end up following. And he talked about how like working with you kind of helped him get out of that, like kind of working in a different environment and stuff like that. So he said
Yeah.
he did the same for you.
Yeah, well, I think that's like really cool to hear because a year ago he was not trying. We were coworkers, and I went to one of his shows. He had been to a couple of the shows that I had done with the band, and I was basically like, after his show, hey, let me just show you a bunch of stuff. I'd love to make a tape for you, or do a project, even if it's just a couple songs. And you know, as he should be, he was protective of his craft, and he had no reason to like hear me out. And he's like, yeah, well, I produce all my own stuff and blah 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 blah.
Mm-hmm.
And then he was talking about him wanting to make a shift, and he came over and I just played him a bunch of stuff, and we just worked really well together. And what I noticed immediately was even when we started from scratch together, we were able to pass off the chair really easily. Where I feel like collaboration can be tough because you always have one guy hunched over the laptop
Yeah,
with the headphones in, trying to micromanage everything, and then some, I feel like it's not equal always. It's never 50-50, and with this it really did feel 50-50.
that's dope, man. Yeah, that's one of the things, and I get that feeling like when because there's a lot of people that might reach out, especially after like a show or something, and they'll say like, "Oh yeah, we need to collaborate," and like, and not only am I like protective of my craft, but sometimes I also I like to be a person that's like a man of his word. So I don't want to like say, yeah, man, we definitely gonna collab without like being in a position where like I can commit to it fully, right? Like somebody might hit me up and say, hey, yeah, let's collab, and then we don't we don't like work together, for like X amount of time because maybe you got something going on and I got something going on, and it just doesn't happen. So and I think that was one of the things me and Camus talked about too. Is just like we didn't work together. I've known him for forever, for example, and we did our first song together like in 2021.
Yeah.
But I knew him for like 5 years, 6 years before that. And I was always a fan of his work, but it was just like it had to be the right time. It had
You
to be
guys
the
had
right
a really
song.
great chemistry too.
Yeah,
I find that surprising.
yeah. Like I don't know. It's just like one of those things where it's like I have to be a fan of somebody first, like a real fan of their work, because it's like okay, if we coming together, like I have an idea of who you are as an artist, and now I know like okay, if we do something together, this is how I envision it going, and kind of thing. So this, but yeah, like you and like how long have you and Eddie been working together?
Less than a year. I think this summer is when we really kind of got things off the on the road because so he actually came. So we were both working in the school system, and he came to my school one day to shadow me, and it was a day that we had testing.
Mm-hmm.
So there was nothing really we could do except just kind of silently sit in my office and to not disturb the kids testing. So I was like, hey, bring your laptop. I'll bring a MIDI controller, and we'll just work on Ableton for a little bit. And ever since then, he'll either come over here, or I'll go over there, and we'll just kind of spitball ideas. And yeah, I think he's just somebody that I've met that has a really open mind, and I can show him some weird sample, or I can show him a half-baked beat
Mm-hmm.
to where he can see a vision coming from it, where I would feel like really embarrassed showing a half-baked beat to
Yeah.
somebody. That's like taking food out of the oven halfway through cooking. It's
Yeah.
like, of course it looks like shit. It's not done cooking. You know,
Man.
um,
And like when you say that, that's what's always been my issue with collaborating. Is because like I always have to feel like that's one of my things. Is like it has to be done, and then I have to kind of be able to let go. And like I like that you were able to like, okay, I could play you this unfinished track, because like even if I had it arranged out and stuff, but it's not mixed or something, it was still like,
yeah,
nah, I can't play that for you.
yeah.
So that's one of those things I gotta like
You
let
want to
go
show
of.
off your highlight reel, not your blooper reel.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because it's like, oh, I can see the vision, but somebody might hear the four blower loop unmixed, just complete unleveled out, and then go, oh man, it sounds like shit.
Yeah. Yeah, but working with him, it's really introduced me into a scene that I wasn't necessarily a part of. I feel like with hip hop, I'm a visitor, and I'm always going to be a visitor.
Hmm.
Do you hear a car alarm in the background?
A little bit, but it's not.
Okay,
Yeah, it's
let
not
me close the window real quick. It'll
bad.
take 2 seconds. Oh, I hope it's not my car. But yeah, so yeah, I always feel like a visitor to hip hop. I think like I've been a lifelong fan of hip hop, but I always feel like a little bit outside of it, even if I'm playing shows and producing or making beats for people.
Hmm.
There's a lot of people that will hear what I make, and it's not their style. And I think of myself as an outsider in a lot of respects.
Mm.
And I don't know. I just love so many different types of music, and just how I grew up. I like to have like a really good melting pot of inspiration.
Yes, how long you been producing? Because I know you said that you were part of, you were part of another band. Like, what other genres of music do you make?
So most recently, I've been making a lot of punk rock, a lot of psychedelic rock. I'm a guitarist first and foremost. Um, but by trade, I would consider myself more of like a funk and soul guitarist. Somebody
Oh,
that would
dope.
play. I'm a rhythm guitarist. Like everybody's like they hear that you play guitar, they're like, oh, play something crazy, shred. I'm like, I'm not a shredder. I'm somebody that knows my chords, and I'm gonna be in the background. And it's like one of those things where like I'm trying not to stick out, and I'm trying to be something more foundational, like what a drummer or a bass guitarist would be. And I think some of my favorite guitarists are amazing rhythm guitarists. And you got to have your leads, but yeah, I think something that's like a little bit more under the radar, and then you listen to something, you listen to it for the fifth time, you're like, there's somebody in the background just doing something really subtle, and that's what's the glue right there.
Yeah, so you're like the ear candy, kind of like that.
Yeah,
You know, that little something that you can't really put your finger on, but that's what's making this as special as
yeah,
it sounded. That's dope.
yeah.
Yeah.
And producing, I've only been producing for a couple of years. I've just been like, I've had like Ableton for only a couple years. It was like a pandemic purchase, and I just kind of went crazy on that. But before, I just like kind of messed around on FL Studio, just making like ratchet ass Florida beats. I'm from Florida, so
That's dope.
yeah, I think that's where like a lot of my influence comes from for sure.
Yeah, like what part of Florida?
So most recently, Orlando. That's where I went to college, and that's where I spent the last 5 years before moving to North Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
But and I kind of claim Orlando just because like that was the first place that I ever moved to where I was like, I can really be myself, and I can like, I don't know, like I feel like when I lived in South Florida, which is like where I really grew up,
Mm-hmm.
it was like really rigid, and I felt like I didn't fit in, and there was like not like a music scene that I was like active in.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I lived all over the state, really.
Oh, that's what's up. Yeah, like I got some family to live out in Florida too, and they tell me about like the music scene out there, and
Yeah,
it's a lot more diverse, a lot more eclectic than like maybe like Miami or something like that, because that's where they lived
yeah.
at for a long time too.
Yeah, because growing up there, you hear a lot of, the house music and techno that comes
Mm-hmm.
out of Miami, and you get a lot of like Latin influences and the samba and cumbia that you hear from the Cuban and Mexican immigrants. And there's a there's a really big underbelly of hip hop,
Mm-hmm.
alternative hip hop, really aggressive hip hop, and then punk and metal are huge there.
Yeah, I've heard that too.
Yeah, the hardcore scene is really nuts. A lot of ska music and reggae too.
Oh, dope. Yeah, so I can see why your influences are so varied. Like why because I could hear a lot of like just from the couple tracks that I heard from the show. I was hearing some like Houston, kind of like screw music influence.
Yeah,
Like the
Houston
real
and
heavy
Memphis
boom
are
bap.
like, yeah, I love it.
Yeah, like that. Cause like I also like your incorporation of like I couldn't really hear it because of the bass and stuff from the the speakers and stuff, but like
Yeah,
the different like sound bites and just like different like samples that I heard like underneath that was like kind of unique. It sounded like movie or radio snippets of stuff like spliced into the music. Like what kind of I guess like what kind of gets you in that creative process when you start throwing in those different like at left field samples.
so I had a really good friend who he does music production now. He DJs a lot of like garage and dubstep and a lot of electronic music. And him, we used to be in like a heavy metal band growing up, and he once we started like shifting to listening to a lot more hip hop,
Mm-hmm.
he would get me into this mindset where I was constantly listening for samples and sounds. And he saw influences from everything, and introduced me to production styles that if you hear something cool in uh like a commercial or something,
Mm-hmm.
like some of the stuff that I sampled the other night was from like old commercials from the 80s and stuff like that, or I'll hear something in a movie, or I have a song where I sampled a bird just because of the the bird was kind of a natural metronome, and I loved like the
Oh,
beeping
dope.
sound. It sounded almost like a fire alarm, but not in a grating way. It was like the rhythm of it, but it was like a really pleasant sound. But I hear stuff all the time that I really love, and we were both in marching band together too,
Hmm.
and just like being around the drum line, I think that's like what got me into just putting together percussion sections and putting drums and beats like that.
Yeah, like cause like the first couple tracks I performed at the show, like my boy Germ Scorsese that lived out in L.A. Like we did a project together called God Made a Monster, and he's very influenced by like electronic and like some dubstep or like drum and bass, not dubstep, drum and
Yeah.
bass type of stuff. So he was incorporating a lot of that, and I like when, cause like I don't know if you put it in before or after. So he'll make the track, and then I'll do my I'll write to it, do the song, and then he'll catch like little things I say in the song where
I was
he'll add
catching
samples
some of
in.
that. Yeah, that was sick. I think what I really appreciated about your set the other day is
Hmm.
that it was like really hard hitting, and it fit such a good equilibrium between like consciousness and like just really like hard hitting at the same time. And
Yeah,
when you'd spoken between songs and you're talking about southern rap being discounted,
yeah,
I totally agree. I think it's the most underrated region in terms of hip hop, and I think you had like a really distinctly southern approach to it the other night. And
yeah,
there were some aspects that I was listening to, and I was like, this. Some parts remind me of like a Big Crit sound, or I would get
yeah.
like little things where I was like, this is so cool, and I think it's such a great representation of North Carolina.
Hey, appreciate it, man. Yeah, like, and it was one of those things because so I brought that up because one of the songs I performed was like kind of inspired by that. Because even after like Andre 3000 and uh, people like Goody Mob and J Cole and Lil Wayne, that showed like, oh, people can rap from the
Yep.
South. It's like a certain, but it's because of the accents, like the dialect, for the Southern slang and stuff like that. Like people kind of look at it like, oh, it's unintelligent just
Mm-hmm.
because it's Southern. And even like as a rapper from a rapper from the South and trying to be lyrical, we were tending to gravitate to more like boom bap style, like New York style, like production to convey that we are lyrical and lyricists. And I'm like, nah, we need to get away from that. I like that you say Big Crit because that was one of the things I liked about Big Crit is that he kept his production southern, but he just knew how to rap, and like
And
he made a
it's the
point to
type
do
of
that.
stuff that like if you sit and listen to the lyrical content of it, it's like really profound in a lot of ways. But
Mm-hmm.
also, if you're in let's say it's like Central's Homecoming, and somebody has a sound system and it's blasting Big Crit,
Yeah.
it's fucking so fun to listen to at the same time,
Yeah.
you know. And I think that that alchemy is really awesome.
Yeah, like matter of fact, when you was talking about being from Florida, the first person I thought about was Denzel Curry,
He's
cause
like
he
my
is like
favorite.
incredible.
I love Denzel. I've been listening to him for such a long time. I saw him in Miami when I had to have been like 19, and I'd heard of him because he was on a Little Ugly Mane track
Okay.
called Twistin'. Sick song, but it's like a young ass Denzel Curry. I want to say he's like 17 in that song.
Okay.
And then and then I saw him years later. I saw him in 2018 in Orlando at uh, like a medium sized venue, like a little bit bigger than the Poorhouse.
Mm-hmm.
And then I saw him a couple months ago in September when he was here for Hopscotch, and my band played at Hopscotch, so I got passes for the festival, and
Mm-hmm.
it was just so great seeing his evolution. And yeah, he's one of my favorites. I really do love him.
Yeah, like I think I saw him. He actually performed in Durham like years ago, and I think it was during the Taboo album
Yeah,
tour, and he performed at this spot called Monaco in Durham, and man, like one of the best hip hop shows that I've been to in a minute, because it was so wild. He was so like, the energy was crazy, but then he would slow it down sometimes to get real serious with, like with joints, and it was like just a great like flow. That's what I liked about our show. It just felt like everything flowed the way it
mm-hmm.
needed to, like from person to person.
Yeah, and he's really like he raps every single word
Yeah.
too. And when I saw him in I it might have been 2018 or 2019, and because it was around the same time Taboo came out,
Mm-hmm.
and I had seen like a bunch of shows at around that same time, and I'd seen Playboy Cardi like a week before. Don't get me wrong, love Playboy Cardi, but he was basically on stage vibing to his own music. He was just like he had
Yeah.
his backtrack and he would just throwing ad libs. And then a couple days later, said Denzel, where he's like, "Gah, gah, gah," he's like a machine gun in the microphone.
Yeah, yeah. Oh man, and that's one of the things we were talking about. And like no disrespect to anybody, but man, rapping over your lyrics is such a big no no now.
Yeah.
It's especially when because like I've been to shows, like I think I saw Lil Durk at Dreamville last year.
Oh yeah. How was that?
It was kind of the same thing what you're talking about with Playboy Cardi,
Yeah.
where he was just vibing. And that's my first time seeing him live.
Yeah.
Was there. So I'm expecting. I'm not necessarily the biggest Lil Durk fan, but I knew he was gonna bring the energy. I'm like, all right, cool. If nothing else, I'm thinking he gonna really put on a show. And he's just kind of vibing with his homeboys on the stage. He's not even really rapping to the crowd. Like he's just kind of
Yeah.
rapping to his homeboys, and they all just kind of hanging out and vibing while the song is playing. So it ain't even like a performance track. And it was like and that's
Yeah,
one of those,
man.
like, it's very important to me, like above everything else. I gotta put on a great live show. Like as an artist, it just feels like if people are paying money to come see me, like I have to give them their money's worth. And like,
Yep.
yeah, it's more than just vibing to the crowd and stuff like that. Like you really gotta give it to them.
Well, and I he's probably earned it at this point. But yeah, man, the if you're there to just vibe, it is disappointing, and I feel like that's more common than not. So when you do see somebody that's really delivering and d- rapping all their words, you can have a backing track, even if it's like we have some backing for for hooks that Eddie does, but for the most part, it's pretty laid back. Or
Yeah.
we'll have like every couple of words, we'll throw on one word that just has a delay on it,
Mm-hmm.
and that's it. So it's not every single word. So man, you're gonna make it so neither of us ever play in Chicago, man.
Hey, I'm just this is like I like to call it like I see it. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Like it's like, hey, maybe I won't perform in Chicago, behind something like that. But hey, if y'all mad at the truth, then you're just gonna be
Yeah.
mad at me.
Yeah.
I told like I said at the show, I'm the controversial rapper. I'm gonna just say I gotta say what I say how I feel. Um, but yeah, man. So like, but I was gonna ask you because you said you felt like an outsider. Like, what? Why do you feel like you're kind of an outsider
Mm,
in hip hop?
I mean, I feel like I think hip hop is something that I listen to more than anything else, but it's not anything that I've ever been like an active participant in, and it's also
Mm-hmm.
like I have to put that you know, kind of tourist mentality. Being a white guy in hip hop, I just don't want to be like disrespectful in a lot of ways.
Mm.
And I think that it's something that I've come into later in my music career.
Mm-hmm.
I felt like an outsider when I was in the punk band too, because I had not necessarily like been in that either. And I think punk and hip hop are two uh, different sides to the same coin, where they have
Yeah.
this like um, matrix where they're thinking there's like an authenticity matrix.
Mm-hmm.
Both hip hop and punk have a really heavy emphasis on authenticity, lyrical content on authenticity. There's I think for certain subgenres of both, there is like a uniform or a mentality or like the punks are like they hate like posers,
Mm-hmm.
and hip people in hip hop, in a very different way, like hate posers too.
Yeah.
So I don't know. That's my mentality about it, and I feel like I felt the same way in the punk scene too. I try to just be like,
Yeah.
because there's some people that are like that's your whole life and that's like your career and you're very serious about your craft, and I don't want to come around like some goofy motherfucker like trying to take the piss out of somebody else's genre.
Yeah, I get that, and I know it's this because I have this conversation with my boy all the time. Like the one I told you about, this a drum and bass producer. Not I keep saying dubstep.
Yeah.
Like a drum and bass producer, and he said, he's kind of the same way because we've talked about working on stuff together before, and I tell him like I'm not as that guy that's like, hip hop belongs to such and such. Like, it's a black form genre, right?
Mhm.
So it's, that's acknowledged, but like I feel like in the beginning hip hop was always created for everybody. It was always a
Yeah.
way to unify everybody. It was just kind of more of a, I guess people in hip hop get really protective because they don't want it to turn into like other genres that were, black centric, that ended up being taken over by like, like a white artist, and then it morphed into a genre that doesn't even get acknowledged as a black art form anymore. But
And that's what's ironic about like
yeah.
I'll get pushback. I've had like people get like kind of pissed about my participation or my claim to my craft about it.
Mm-hmm.
However, if I've ever been like playing the blues or in a rock band or like punk at its foundation was a black genre as well, like I would never get any pushback on that.
Yeah, like I,
You know,
I
it's
mean, Beyonce right now is trying to do a country album, and like there's a lot of people that are saying that she doesn't belong in the genre. But I'm like,
before they even heard the track.
yeah,
And
they
the
hadn't even
track is
heard it.
like that. It's a country. Like her music is country right now.
Yeah, and then when you really think about it, it's like country is just blues, or country is just like the banjo was created. It's like based on like an African instrument.
Yeah.
And that's kind of like the origins of country. But I think most of the time, I think it's really like, because I could think of artists like Mac Miller and how nobody ever had a problem with him being a hip hop artist. Or
Mm-hmm.
if they did, it wasn't as widely thing. It's like, no, because I felt like the way Mac approached it with being his authentic self, it was easy for us to accept him into hip hop. Or it's like the Beastie Boys, or um, like ASAP Rock or somebody like that.
Yeah.
Like there's plenty of artists, or like Alchemist. There like plenty of artists that it doesn't become a problem. Like even Eminem, I feel like Eminem is one of those guys, and I talk about all the time where I'm like he's kind of like the blessing and the curse. It's
Yeah.
like
Absolutely.
I know he's just as talented as people say he is. So it's not a talent issue. Like he's earned his spot as like one of the best lyricists,
For
but it's
sure.
like he's gonna be discredited because he's a white guy in hip hop, but he's also like he's gonna be discredited, but he's also kind of like a victim of success. to a
Yeah,
certain degree.
and that's the thing too. He with Eminem in specific, he he's somebody that obviously his whole life is hip hop, and like
Mm,
I'm not the biggest Eminem fan, but he's like he really is one of the greatest to ever do it, and I think he's gonna always be discounted, but also he's the highest selling rapper of all time,
yeah.
and I feel like I feel like some a lot of white people use him as a vehicle for like I don't like rap, but this Eminem guy's all right to me.
Yeah,
It's like
man.
what do you mean by that?
Yeah, there's a lot of and I've had that conversation a lot, and it's like and it's like I don't want to discredit Eminem because there's plenty of tracks like even though his stuff may have not maybe a little controversial for today's standards, like I was a big fan of the Eminem Show and the Mathers LP, so I'm not gonna sit here and like completely diss him, but I could
Yeah,
also see people saying, well, maybe he's a little overrated because
dude, if he had stopped at that original run, I
like
would
the
be a
original
lifelong
three,
fan. I would
yeah.
be a lifelong fan. After that, I'm not gonna sit here and defend Eminem.
Yeah, man, it was, I held out hope. Recovery was cool. I was like, maybe he's back now that he off the drugs. But I think, yeah, it
Yeah,
kind of went downhill after that too.
yeah. It's hard to be a 50-year-old man and like uh, making songs about internet bullies.
Yeah,
I hope by the time I'm 50, I'm not like concerned with haters.
yeah, especially when you're like the most successful
Yeah,
guy.
I know.
Like
Yeah,
it's like, bro, you're completely untouchable at this point. I don't even know why you're upset about like Benzino or somebody else that has nothing like that will never even be able to touch what you've been able to do.
yeah, yeah. Absolutely. Uh, so,
So yeah, but like but just from our conversations and like hearing what you've been able to do so far, like I can tell that you are like a real like fan, a real like student of hip hop. So like I I only feel like you should feel like an outsider if it really you haven't done the research and the study, and it seems like you are like a lifelong fan.
yeah, for sure. Yeah, I absolutely am. And I don't know. I feel like also the outsider mentality is good to have in some ways. So
Yeah.
you're I think that's my own form of that my own spot in the authenticity matrix that I was talking about.
Mm-hmm.
I'm authentically being like, hey, this isn't everything I do. I can
Yeah.
be a visitor to many genres, and you were talking about drum and bass. Like that's one of my favorite genres. I love jungle and drum and bass, and I
Yeah.
want to make a project like that. And I know that it's gonna piss off some electronic music head that's like, this isn't real. Like your BPMs are off, man.
Yeah.
You don't have a $3,000 Newmark DJ deck, you know?
Yeah, I feel like there's a beauty in being an outsider too, like, cause when I started producing myself, I didn't have any like formal training. At the time, I didn't know much about music theory and like reading sheet music and things like that. So, but and then I felt like I was creating just kind of like from an unfamiliar place, which is like once you get into the weeds of like learning certain things, you do run the risk of I don't know. I felt like you run the risk of sometimes following the blueprint instead of creating your own.
Yeah, you
So
shouldn't confine yourself to like some like rigid rule system, especially on like a genre right now that is I think going through like a renaissance where you have like even if you look back like 15 years
mm,
that there's always been weirdos in raps and there's always been outsiders in rap, but right now there's like there's so many people doing strange abstract, they're pushing the boundaries of the genre and
yeah,
just in infusing, and the accessibility is really increasing that just because everybody in their bedroom can be a producer, but
yeah,
putting those rigid rules on you, it's like I think that's kind of like counterproductive when you're thinking of like hip hop.
Oh yeah. Like matter of fact, there was an album last year. JPEG Mafia and Danny Brown came together and they did that
Scaring
album
the
"Scaring the
hose.
Hoes." Bruh, that was my favorite. That was my favorite rap album of last year. Like no
Dude, it was
lie,
so
cause
good.
and it just like blew my mind. Like just the way they were able to just experiment. Like I've never heard it. Even as strange as JPEG Mafia's production usually is, I felt like he even outdone him, did himself on Scaring the Hoes. Like just taking it to a whole another level. That's the kind
He's
of shit that
taking hip hop
inspires.
production to it's the bleeding edge. It's the
Yeah.
true like it's not only like finding weird samples. A lot of people can find weird and underground samples,
Mm-hmm.
but the way in which he uses them is so unique.
Yeah.
And he did that entire album on an SP404,
Yeah. When
which
I read
is
that, I thought that was nuts. Like,
so I think that's what like that's the reason I bought one. I bought one this summer after hearing that.
oh, that's dope.
That's what I played on the other night.
Yeah, I noticed that. So you were playing like, so you were playing everything straight from the
Yeah,
SP
from the
404.
404. Oh, and a mixer. I was using Eddie's mixer as
Oh,
well.
okay, but
But
still
yeah,
though, that's
95% of it was coming out of the 404. It's
yo, that's
such
dope.
a yeah.
Cause
I couldn't
yeah, I don't have any hardware, but I'm thinking I might get one now.
dude, you
But
got dude. I see some people on Marketplace. They get rid of them. I just saw an hour ago because I
oh,
bought
for
mine for
real?
500 brand new. I saw
Oh
this guy in
wow.
Marketplace. He was like, I played it for 15 minutes, don't know how to use it. It's going for 400. And that's for the brand new model. I'm actually waiting to hear back from this guy. I'm picking it up in SP555 for 200 bucks
Oh
in
shit.
Apex. So I'm waiting for the text after this. And, you know, I love collecting hardware. I think the the ability to take it and kind of unplug. I feel like when I open Ableton, I love working in Ableton, or if I'm
Hmm.
at somebody else's house using Logic. Um, it's like going to the grocery store and you're looking at 50 different types of yogurts and you're like, I don't even know what to choose right now.
Hmm.
Where the hardware kind of like it narrows it down. Maybe you don't have the unlimited supply that you have, but you have like what you do. You maybe have 10 yogurts and they're all like amazing. And you
Hmm.
can also take it with you and not have to worry about internet connection or, your computer crashing. So I'll take this thing. I took two of the beats that I played the other night. I made in a really short amount of time. I was at Duke Gardens just sitting in the grass and hanging out.
See, that's dope. Like that's the kind of freedom I think I need. Cause I'm not even running on a laptop right now. I'm running on a desktop, so I
Same.
really can't like take it anywhere. Like if I really wanted to make music, and so yeah, like and then I don't know. I guess I've always been a DAW person, so the idea of like making something straight on hardware just kind of feels a little intimidating. But nah, I think I'm just I need to just take the leap and go for it.
Well, and what I love about it too is like it's a little overwhelming at first. It's an entirely different workflow. Your approach with a DAW
Hmm.
is going to be so different with the hardware, but I think it makes you a little bit more versatile. And then also the thing that I didn't even think about before I bought it,
Hmm.
and the main thing that I use it for now is I I start something on Ableton or I'll start something on the 404
Hmm.
and I spit it back and forth and take advantages of the DAW and
Ah.
the hardware. And it's like a dual star system. It's like the gravity of both of them are just like it's made my process so much weirder but so much more fun.
Yo, that's dope. I didn't even think about it like that. Like I'm looking at it like making something solely on one or solely on the other, but like being able to bounce back and forth. I'd be able to create something that I probably wouldn't have been able to do just with the DAW, and then vice versa, just on the hardware. Just kind of like taking advantages of like the best of both of them. Like, do you like working in the DAW more, or do you like the 404 more?
I love both. They're so different. I get a little bit more frustrated with the 404
Okay.
just because it does feel like you're working on an old computer.
Yeah.
But I still love it. It has a built-in compression. I barely have to mix my stuff on the 404.
Oh,
Like
that's
it
dope.
sounds like some of the stuff just sounds so good. And Eddie will
Yeah.
be like, "Did you mix this already?" I'm like, "No, I haven't touched the mixing or mastering." And it sounds so good. And I'll have like little things where like I'll make a mistake on it, and it's
Mhm.
not as easy as with Ableton. I'll just like, oh, just restart it. I'll have it on a loop and I'll play it 6 times till I get it right.
Mhm.
This will be like, all right, I messed up. I gotta go back and redo all this, and it's a
Mhm.
little bit more painstaking. But sometimes the mistakes sound crazy,
Yeah.
and the drums are so human sounding on it,
Mhm.
and I feel like I struggled with, especially if I'm making something that's more like boom bap and off the grid.
Mhm.
I could do that in Ableton, and then I would always be looking at the big grid on it afterwards, and I would just kind of go with my mouse and move it over
Yeah.
like a millisecond. And this is like it's imperfect, but it sounds so like when you're bobbing your head to it, you're like it's more of a pocket. It's like a drummer.
Yeah. Like it feels more organic doing it that
Yeah,
way. Cuz I used to just draw in everything. Like
yeah.
my notes, whether it's the melody or like the drums. Now I use cuz I got a MPK mini
Oh,
from
nice.
Kai. So
Yeah,
now I do all my finger drumming on that, and I'm like, yo, that feels so much better
yeah.
doing it.
It
Like I
does.
fuck up a lot, I fuck up a
Yeah,
lot, but and I have to go back and do it, but redo it. But it just feels like once you get it down, like it feels way more like authentic.
yeah. And I feel like especially when I'm making something that's like Memphis inspired,
Mm-hmm.
they have like a very their drum machines are very on the grid, like they're very like
Yeah.
and I thought like as a rule of thumb, if I'm making something like that, the hi-hats and the snare got to be like
Mm-hmm.
and honestly they don't have to. You can not quantize the drums and it sounds cool. And I think to a lot of listeners they won't even notice. And then when you have somebody that is really into production or just really keen to those details, they're like, this isn't quantized and it sounds so dope. It's got a heartbeat to it.
Yeah, like I kind of go back. Like I used to draw in my drums and stuff, and then I would have to go in and like make everything like manually,
Yeah.
unquantize it basically, and that felt like more of a pain in the ass. I thought I was afraid of playing it like on the keyboard because I thought that was gonna take longer, but I feel like it was more of a pain in the ass to like try to go back and like unrobotic my stuff.
I mean, I mean, it's obvious you have a good sense of rhythm, and making them unquantized is, I think you'll do well with it. I'm not sponsored by Roland. I would happily take a Roland sponsorship,
Yeah.
but I'm gonna try to plug you in on that. And what's cool is they have a dedicated DJ feature. So if that's something that you ever wanted to
Dope.
do, you
Yeah.
can do it. It has a mic port in it, but it also, if you flip a switch on it, it's a
Mhm.
guitar jack, and it has amp simulators. So that was something as a guitarist I was like, all right, it's not just for like hip hop and electronic music. I can like plug my guitar and sample myself, and
Oh, see,
it's
that's sick.
it's really just like opened a new world for me.
Okay. Well, yeah, I think I think you've convinced me. I think I'm definitely gonna have to get, even if I don't get that a 404 specifically. I know I need to get me some hardware that I can play with.
Yeah, yeah, I'm all for the drum machines, synthesizers. That's it just made more sense to me. I feel like I had an uphill battle learning DAWs,
Yeah.
and I get frustrated when I first started doing it because you got to watch these tips and tricks videos, or you have somebody that knows what they're doing show
Yeah.
you something, and it's so much to learn. And then you see somebody that's like a wizard with DAWs, and you're like, I feel like I'm nowhere close to that.
Yeah.
And it was an easy. incorporation to have. I buy synthesizers and drum machines too,
Mm-hmm.
because of that ability to play. It's a tangible thing for me, and it was like playing the guitar for me.
Okay.
It's like the guitar makes sense. It's like really simple hardware at the end of the day. I plug this thing into a speaker and it comes out,
Yeah.
and everything that I do comes out perfect or imperfect. And I think that's the beauty of putting hardware in conjunction with your dog.
Okay. Yeah. I have no like experience playing an instrument or anything like that. So it was. So
That's
I felt
crazy
like I
because
was
I you gave the impression that you would have.
nah. Like I could play a little, very little piano. That's
Mhm.
pretty much it. Like I learned a few songs just like by ear. Uh, but it's like little simple stuff. Like I might be able to play the first four bars of like Alicia Keys track or something. Just
Mhm.
that it'd be something simple like that. But I know enough to where like I could, if I got a melody in my head, I could play it on my MIDI keyboard and try to like get it in there as close as possible.
Yeah.
Uh, so yeah, like and honestly, it's because how FL Studio was cracked to death,
Yeah.
back in the day before they fixed that. So that was my like introduction to just making my own beats and stuff like that. So everything's just been by ear, by just learning on the fly. This is before I even had internet access, so I couldn't even look up YouTube videos. So it was just
Honestly, that's kind of great in a way. Just like going in blind. I think there's a beauty to that too.
yeah, yeah. It's just and early your beats was terrible. Like you can look back on now and like be like, oh, that was
Yeah.
terrible when I first started. But at the time, it just felt like the greatest thing in the world because I'm like, wow, I didn't think
Yeah.
I would even be able to put this together.
Yeah. The first time that you like you put in an 808 bass, you're like, I'm the best producer ever. So I have a question for you.
Oh, what's
So
up?
what? So we've been talking about hip hop.
Yeah.
What do you have a favorite artist, album, band, like non hip hop?
Oh, non hip hop.
Yeah,
Ah, man. Cause this thing, cause I listen to a lot of different stuff.
yeah.
Um,
I don't want to put you on the spot like that, but I'm curious to pick your brain about like
uh,
the outside influences.
well, I know Prince is definitely a big influence.
Absolutely.
Like Purple Rain in 1999, was in heavy rotation at my house. My mom wasn't really that big of a hip hop listener
Yeah.
growing up. It was like she listened to like stuff like neo soul and like 80s rock and stuff like that. So it's a lot of Tears for Fear,
Oh hell yeah.
The Cure. Um, like she loved Nirvana's first album.
Yeah.
Is the it's just a lot. I was listening to a lot of different stuff even before I really got into hip hop. But yeah, like probably my favorite non hip hop album is definitely like Prince and the Revolution, the Purple Rain album.
Greatest of all time.
Yeah, man. Like actually, I just watched this documentary, and me and my wife, I think we're gonna do a podcast episode about it. It was about how they put together "We Are the World,"
Yeah.
and they were talking about how Prince just basically bailed on him. He didn't show up, but it was just
Yeah.
because that wasn't his creative process to be in that room with all those people. Like he needed to be in his own space, and that's always been my thing. So I was like, oh yeah,
I think that's
he's
on brand for him, and he was a perfectionist, and it really
yeah.
showed. And I feel like sometimes you see perfectionists that are like, uh,
As a
how
negative,
do I say? Yeah, like let's say that you went on YouTube right now and you typed in "world's greatest guitar solo," and
yeah.
it'd be some dude just go playing a million notes per second.
Hmm.
Prince could shred, but he made the guitar talk, and it had so much feeling and depth to it. And I
Hmm.
think that Prince is going to always be one of the greatest guitarists because of that, and it had so much feeling. And he really didn't cut corners in terms of what he wanted. And there's only a couple people that are have really pulled that off, like
Mm.
him and Steely Dan is like that to me.
Oh yeah, Steely Dan is dope.
Yeah, they still test sound systems with Steely Dan records to this day. Like those
Really?
guys were, yeah, they were super top notch artists. But yeah, that sounds interesting. I'd love to tune in for that. I want to hear what you think about the We Are the World stuff.
Oh yeah, like I guess I don't want to give away too much now if
Yeah,
we
yeah,
do
yeah.
end
Don't
up
do
doing
that.
it. But like it was very fascinating just from not only like just a technical aspect of it. Like they were even talking about how their process of figuring out who was gonna stand next to who and who was gonna come after who on a technical level. Like how they wanted to set it up before they even had everybody show up for the recording session. So I was like, oh, that is dope.
Did you feel inspired after watching it?
Yeah, I felt a combination of inspired and also like overwhelmed as hell. Cause you could just imagine trying to get all of those people who were at the height of their career
Yep.
in that one studio session for those hours and hours and getting them all to cooperate like the way you needed them to.
And half of them are on drugs and showing up late and
Yeah, they're like, I
like
mean, I think it was Bruce Springsteen had just finished the like Born in the USA tour,
yeah.
like right before they were supposed to do that. Like he just flew in from the last show straight to the studio session, and I gotta respect the dedication because he was like, my voice was about shot, but he still gave it his all
Yeah.
for his part. So this that is those kind of things. Just like it's a miracle that song happened at all the way that it did.
Yeah. Was it Wham who put that together? Was it like George
Oh,
Michael that
it was
am I
actually
no, I'm thinking of the other benefit that
the
they had done.
Band Aid.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, the Band Aid because they actually
Yeah.
talked about how that inspired the We Are the
Okay.
World. But
Yeah.
it was Quincy Jones, Lionel Richie, and it was one other guy. I can't remember. He was the guy
Yeah.
that kind of really. Harry Belafonte.
Okay, yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
that makes sense. Yeah, I saw something recently that really got me like fired up. I watched a documentary about Jimi Hendrix playing at the Monterey Pop Festival in
Oh, dope.
1967. So it's like peak summer of love, and Jimmy and the Who are like fighting over who's going to play first because they don't want to follow each other.
Mm.
And so the Who, I don't remember how they, if it was like a coin toss or something, but the Who goes on stage and they play this crazy fucking set, and they
Mm-hmm.
like break all of their instruments, and they put like a firework in the drum kit, and it was, they blew up their instruments. And they're doing this, and everybody's kind of like watching, like, oh my God, I've never seen anything like this before. And so when they're cleaning up the stage after the Who just like brought the house down, and the crowd's like silent. They're like, what the fuck did we just witness? And then Jimmy comes up on stage and has like the most insane set afterwards. He did a cover of Sergeant Pepper by the Beatles, like
Oh
right
shit.
after it came out. Like it was like a brand new song. Nobody even like really knew it that
Mm-hmm.
well at this point. And then he played Wild Thing. He lit his guitar on fire at one point. Again, just like brought the house
Shit.
down, came back out, and he's just like literally the greatest to ever do it. I love Prince, but I think Jimmy is like my number one ever, ever,
Oh
ever.
yeah.
And seeing him do that, I was like, what the fuck am I doing with my, this guy died at 27. I'm almost 30. Like, oh, I need to make some moves and just like really pour my heart into my artwork.
Yeah, I feel that. Like I look at, but then I also get inspired by somebody like Nas, right? Because he
Mm-hmm.
just literally put out some of his best work at 50 years old,
Yeah.
and like at a point where people thought like he didn't have it no more. He just put out 6 albums in 3 years, and
I just saw him
all of them
last year when he
tremendous.
was here.
Yo, I'm so mad
And
I missed that show. Well, at the time I couldn't go because
yeah,
they got a fresh newborn. I wouldn't have been able to
yeah,
go, but I didn't even know about the show until after the fact. Like I saw
yeah.
people posting videos about it later, and I was so mad. At least I would have liked to try to sneak out if I knew. Even if I wasn't able to, I would have at least tried to sneak out to go see
I
Nas.
only went because I got last second VIP tickets,
Oh wow.
and so I saw it from like a really dope like vantage point. And what was cool about the concert was that I was thinking about, I was like, who's gonna headline? Is it Wu Tang or Nas? I'm
Hmm.
like, who's gonna, like, I could see it going either way. And what they did was they went back and forth. So Nas would come out for a song,
Oh, that's dope.
he would pop off stage, Wu Tang would come out, and it was just back and forth. And I'm like, I would love to do this. I would love to get like a really tight show with somebody, like have Eddie come out and pass it off to somebody else, or find two that have like a really great chemistry and
Yeah.
fan crossover. And I think it was like a really effective way to handle the headlining dilemma that I feel like a lot of shows have.
Yeah, that would be sick. Actually, I think that would be a great. And then on a way as far as like a show, it will keep people from having wanting to leave after a certain set or something like that because it's like they're gonna be back out there, and it just kind of keeps the momentum going. Like you do a song, I do a song, back and forth. Yo, that actually be a dope ass idea for a show.
Yeah, and it would be so hard to do it. Like I've never been able to do it in like bands that I'm in. Like you can't break down a stage with
Yeah,
all the mics and guitars, but I'm like, you just have two live mics and you guys just pass it back and forth. And it's or like what you and Canvas or Camus were doing, like with the collabs.
hmm,
It would be cool to do like some songs on stage together and then other songs pass back and forth, and
yeah.
it's kind of has like a cipher vibe to it,
Oh yeah,
you know.
yeah.
And
That would be super dope,
yeah, because you
especially if
gotta
we got
you
a lot
gotta
of
think
songs
of like
together.
the like inception of hip hop and the whole like block party scene. And like I feel like that's more of like roots of hip hop to kind of do that. Like somebody goes and it's like, all right, who's next?
Yeah, like, and that would be because now, and Eddie and I talked about this a lot too, where it's a lot of kind of competition type of thing. Like we would meet at these events that were kind of like it was mostly kind of like open mics and like mixers and stuff like that, where it's just a bunch of artists. And how you would go up on stage, you perform, people rocking with you, but they won't give you no love while you on stage.
Mm-hmm.
So you kind of in your head like you thinking maybe and this is like early on, so I'm thinking like all right maybe it's just not hitting like that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm still kind of finding myself as an artist, but then you see them front row with their arms crossed like this the whole time, but then they'll come and see you outside and be like, "Yo, man, that was so dope," but they didn't want to
Yeah.
give you no love on stage because it's kind of like a competition. Like they didn't want to seem like you did a much better job than them, so that they ain't gonna give you no reaction. Just that perception. But we just kind of want to get away from that now. It's like, all right, we know hip hop
Yeah.
is is looked at like a competitive genre or stuff.
It doesn't need to be that way, man.
Yeah, and it's like, yo, we can still show each other love. I don't really care about the whole being the best thing, being the best lyricist. It's just more about putting on a great show, whatever that
You
looks like.
you got to make music that you yourself would go seek out and listen to.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
I've made beats for people that like that was great for them, and I got paid off of it, and it was fun to do. But I was like, I wouldn't necessarily go seek this out,
Yeah,
you know.
yeah. Like because I always say that I'm a fan before I'm an artist.
Yep.
So I really would. I like to make something and then take myself out of the equation and just go, if I didn't make this, would I be would I click on this to listen to it? Or would I enjoy it? Would it stick with me, or would it just be a curious listen, and then I'll turn it off after that? You know, I've always been big on you got to do it for the love of it more than anything.
Yeah, because especially like I'm sure you've experienced this too. The people are trying to skip the first couple of steps,
Mm-hmm.
and they're trying to make a bunch of money for every show. They're trying to you know show up late, perform, headline. Don't show up for like a line check or they want to skip the skip those first couple of steps when
Mm-hmm.
you really have to put in the groundwork. You're going to play some shows where you don't make any money, and you got to do it because you love it. Because if you're
Yeah,
in it for the money, it shows. You're not going to ever last if you don't like it.
exactly. Like, I know some people that put in a lot of work, like, put a lot of effort and promote, but maybe for one reason or another, only 5 people show up, and they like half-ass their set now because they're
Mhm.
upset that people didn't arrive. I'm like, man, those 5 people still showed up for you, man. You
Those
got to put
five
on
people rock with you so much
exactly.
that they'll sit in an otherwise empty room and fuck with your music. And those are the people that are, they're in at the ground floor. They're the
Mm-hmm.
they're the day one fans, and they're the people that without them you'd be playing to nobody.
Mm-hmm.
And you shouldn't feel that way. Yeah, you can kind of get in your head when you have an expectation of like a full room,
Mm-hmm.
but also I played shows with 10 people at it that were some of the most fun shows.
Yeah. Like, yeah, like, you might get like 5, 10 people show up, but those people know the lyrics. Like, the album just came out, and like there's times where, like, I did the first show I did after my God Made a Monster project came out. People already knew the lyrics to certain songs like "Built Like This" and "Fake Love"
Mm-hmm.
and stuff like that. And that I didn't care at that point. It was just like, yo, these people fuck with me for real.
Yeah, it's, it's hard to come by, the people that are willing and able to make it out to the shows, and it makes you feel loved in a lot of ways,
Yeah.
and you owe it to those people. And then what I love about living in the Triangle now is that the music scene is really alive and thriving, and every single night there is something dope going on.
Mm-hmm.
We could end this podcast right now and go meet up somewhere in Durham and go see like a good ass show, or
Yeah.
Raleigh or Chapel Hill. And if we go to Greensboro, there's also cool stuff going on there. And it inspires me to put myself out there and be a member of the audience and find other local artists that are killing it right now.
Oh yeah, definitely, man. Yeah, like the RDU scene, especially like ever since I felt like after COVID, I felt like there was like a real big like all right, we got to get back out here and we really got to push to do stuff because I'm still seeing new venues pop up like more and more like people are doing events and they're like more diverse of like artists like sounds and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's not just the same trap artist or the drill artist or whatever. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's definitely dope, man. But yo, I first of all, man, thank you for the dope conversation, man. This was really dope. I really like Eddie. And when I was putting together the schedule, I was like, damn, man, I'm so mad at myself for not hitting you up because I'm like, yeah, it is Sweet and Low. It's not just Eddie Low. So I was like, all right, we got to make up for this. We got. I was gonna take this week off, but I was like, nah, we gotta make up for this.
I
And
wasn't
so,
even feeling any sort of way about it. I just saw like clips from it, and I was like,
hmm
no, I need to like, I would love to like have a conversation.
yeah, yeah. And I was, and then after talking to you at the show, I was like, oh yeah, we definitely got to do this. Like we definitely got to
Yeah.
get this episode. And this was great, man. So thank
Yeah.
you for taking the
Yeah.
time out and being part of the show today, man. I really appreciate it. Any like final words you want to give before we wrap up?
No, I'm just kind of like reeling back from like I did between everything that I was doing musically, I did like 76 shows last year.
Damn.
It was a lot. It was too much in a lot of ways. And now I have a lot of freedom to do what I want to do and kind of spearhead projects instead of being a part of other people's projects.
Mm-hmm.
And not to say that I don't have room for other people's projects and stuff, but yeah, I'm just really looking forward to a year that's more focused around like the purity of my own vision, and I'm just really excited to put my ideas out there. And I think this year's going to be a really good one for me, and I'm really lucky to have met the people along the way. Now you are added to that.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people in the scene that do lift you up, and I really look forward to hearing more from you as well, because you earned a new fan. That was the first time I'd heard you.
Oh, dope.
So I was really blown away by that, and I feel like I got to know you pretty well through your music and now talking to you. So yeah, I'm just looking forward to my own music, looking forward to music that you might have coming out. And yeah, follow me on Instagram, MADHUNNY with two Y's.
Oh, dope. And yo, y'all got the new project. What's the EP called?
Oh,
You and
Sweet
Eddie.
and Low.
Sweet and Low. Yeah.
So yeah, volume one. We'll see if we have more volumes come out this year. We have stuff in the chamber. We're just ready to pull the trigger now.
Dope, man. I'm looking forward to that. I'm definitely gonna be checking in for the EP because yeah, the music that you and Eddie played, like performed at the show, was really dope and like definitely up my alley, man. So make sure y'all look out for that Sweet and Low EP Volume One, dropping March 9th. It's gonna be on all the streaming platforms and stuff, right?
Everywhere you can hear music. You
Okay,
got
dope.
Spotify, Apple Music. I'm sure it's on MySpace. Uh,
Yeah, once I can figure out my MySpace password from like 10 years ago, I'm gonna
yeah, you got to
I'm gonna
send it
check
to
it
your
out.
AIM account.
Yeah.
That's
So
yeah.
I have to try to like okay, I have to get my old laptop from the from the storage unit and try to get back on that because
Yeah,
yeah, I don't
good
know my
luck,
main
bro.
login. But all right, man, yo,
All
and I'm
right,
gonna leave
take.
your IG and stuff information also on the description of this video once it goes up on YouTube. But it's been your boy Vinnie-Dangerous, the homie Shane, aka Mad Honey. This is another episode of 1430, and until next time, much love.